Man, there is nothing in hockey that has an impact one direction or the other like goaltending. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. If I sound a little bit off today, well, let's just say you should have heard me over the weekend. Rough bout with the cold or the flu or whatever it was hit, and I'm fine now, even though it might not sound that way. Maple Leafs 6, Penguins 5 in overtime yesterday. Out of those 11 goals total, there might have been one, the Brian Rust backhand tuck, where I would say, all right, that was a legit NHL shot that should have found the back of the net. That's how bad this was by both sides. By Joel Blomqvist, who was atrocious, by Joseph Woll, who was atrocious, and it ended on a goal by William Nylander that was appropriately atrocious. He didn't even really shoot the hockey puck. He just kind of moved into the center, the vertical middle of the Penguins zone, and just flicked in the general direction of Blomqvist's suddenly radioactive blocker side, and it just sailed right on through. I honestly didn't know who to feel sorrier for, the Penguins or the Maple Leafs, because the Maple Leafs are actually going to make the playoffs. But as they do every year, and as they have done every year since 1967, back when it was just a 6-team literal garage league, they'll be blown to bits when the games matter, not just because Austin Matthews disappears in those games, not just because Mitch Marner disappears in those games, not just because Nylander disappears in those games, for the most part. Nylander actually shows a little bit. The other two don't. But rather because they enter these tournaments with no goaltending and then act surprised every time they're out. Nothing has more of a push in one direction or the other. No position, maybe not in sports, with all due respect to an NFL quarterback. And where these Penguins are concerned, now heading out onto the road to play 3 games that unequivocally do not matter, in an environment where Friday brings the NHL's trade deadline, the one thing that you really wouldn't want to be hanging over the process is horrific goaltending. And that's what the Penguins are getting right now for the most part. Yeah, Alex Nedeljkovic has been better in his last couple of starts. He's had some lousy luck. He's had goals that legitimately weren't his fault. It doesn't matter. For what I'm talking about here, it doesn't matter. Because if it's the same result again and again and again, and doubly so if that result is born of genuine incompetence at the position, which is what we saw yesterday, man, it drags everybody down and everything. And you can be that fan who cheers for them to lose because you think it's going to make a whopping difference if they're picking 6th or they're picking 5th in the draft. But the cold truth to this is the Penguins are a lot better off winning as many games as they can the rest of this season, if only to keep this thing from really becoming some multi-year devastation. I will believe that as a hockey principle more strongly than I believe any other hockey principle in all of the time that I do this program. I can promise you that. It is not 1984. There is not a benefit to tanking in the NHL. Whether it's willful or not, there is not a benefit to doing an extended amount of losing. The damage that's done on the inside can take a long, ugly time to repair. You don't want that. And as such, you will want, or to be more to the point, Kyle Dubas will want goaltending that isn't just going to cramp these guys, that isn't just going to have them fold up. I mean, this was a trash homestand for the Penguins from the results standpoint. For the most part, they still gave a crap. And you want that. You need that. Don't make me repeat it. Because when you lose that, that's when you go through a decade and a half of being the Red Wings or the Blackhawks. Or as long as I'm at it, even though they're not falling off from anything, the Sabres. You just become comfortable with losing. You accept it. It's just how things are. You don't want that infection going through your room any more than I wanted that annoying thing that hit me over the weekend. Now, what are the answers? Well, it sure isn't Tristan Jarry, and he made sure everybody believed that by giving up a bunch of goals over the weekend. I am on record as stating that I don't think it's Sergei Murashov, and I don't think it should be Sergei Murashov. He's so young, and he needs to show more in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Yes, I'm aware he was 6-0, 1.99 goals against, .934 save percentage. I just mean literally more. He needs more time there. So why not Philip Larson? Why not send Blomqvist, who looked yesterday like, I don't want to be mean here. He's young. I'm sure he's got a bright future in front of him. He's talented. He's got a lot of poise. But he didn't in this setting. And that might have been more unsettling than anything else that occurred. I mean, he looked like he didn't want to be there. Now, I'm not in his head. I'm not in Andy Chiodo's head. I'm not in the head of any of the management or evaluators. But when that Nylander puck started coming his way, he looked like he wanted nothing to do with it. And that's a problem. That's a problem that has to be addressed. Not by throwing him out there against the Avalanche tomorrow night in Denver either. So maybe Larson, who came over as a bit of a late bloomer from Sweden, he can show something in this final stretch for the Penguins. I don't know. If it sounds like I'm grasping, it's because I am, but it's also because they should be. This can't go on. This can't go on. This is going to drag everything down. And for the 5th time today, you don't want that. When we come back, J1Q.
This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Today's J1Q comes from Mike. It says DK Erik Karlsson mentioned after the game taking a stance if it comes to the possibility of being asked to waive his no movement clause. Based on your time around Erik, do you think he would want to go to a contender, or is he fine finishing his contract in Pittsburgh? Mike, I have 2 distinctly different ways to answer this. The first one, respectfully, is to share what Karlsson had to say on this subject yesterday after the game.
I think it's just, we were talking about, like, how do you deal with, what's coming up? And obviously in my situation, I have full say on whether anything happens or not. I have not been asked, and until I do get asked, whenever that is, and if that is, I'll take a stance. Until then, I'm not worrying about it, because, again, I have nothing to worry about, because I will know, I'll be the first one to know, I'm sure. And then I'll deal with that situation if that occurs. Up until now, it hasn't. So it hasn't been on my mind, and it's not something that I'm, walking around thinking about. But it obviously is a stressful time here for most of this group right now with the situation we're in, and everybody's been around long enough to know what's going to happen, most likely, and that weighs on you. As for my situation, like I said, I'll deal with that if it and when it comes, and until then, I'm not.
Okay, so that's his stance, his public stance for right now. My number 2 answer here, and you're right, I have spent a lot of time with this individual, feel like I've gotten to know him. We've definitely communicated quite a bit in recent weeks. If you're asking me here, Mike, as to whether or not Karlsson would accept a trade somewhere else, the answer to that is a booming yes. And I mean booming with the sound, but bright red neon with the visuals, with all kinds of fireworks and sparklers coming out of it. Yes. But to his point that you heard him making, he has that right. He has earned that right that's in his contract to make that call, just as he'd earned that right, because it was the same contract, to make the call to come to Pittsburgh, to single out Pittsburgh when he was getting out of San Jose. He wants to play meaningful hockey. He wants to play high-level hockey. He wants to play compatible hockey. That's as far as I'm going to go in this discussion, at least that specific portion of it. Now, Erik also knows me well enough to know that I'll always tell the truth, including when I'm just talking to you, the listener. And the truth is, he has played a lot better for Team Sweden than he has for the Penguins in recent weeks. That includes yesterday, obviously, when he made a couple of just grotesque giveaways. Unforgivable, remarkable giveaways. That thing at the end of the second period, we'll never see something like that in hockey again, where you have an offensive zone faceoff. Your captain wins it right back to you. There were 5 seconds on the clock at the time the puck was dropped, and the other team gets a goal? Do you have any idea how physically hard that is to replicate if you wanted to? Like if you had to stage it for a movie or something, you wouldn't be able to pull it off. That's how bad that decision was. So maybe this would be best for all concerned. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.